Hi everybody and welcome back to Apnin News. So today what I thought I'd speak about is the cold case murder of a woman from Eastbourne I'd never heard of. Okay, I can admit I'd never heard of it until last night when I was going through all my emails and everything, and I had an email come through from Sussex Police basically saying that they've solved the cold case murder of Jennifer Kiely. Now, Jennifer Kiely is a woman who was murdered 25 years ago when her body was discovered after a fire was reported in a seafront shelter in Holywell in the early hours of the 22nd of January 2005. So it's over 20 years now. You know, she's a 35-year-old woman who had sustained multiple stab wounds and an injury to the back of her head, and her body was set on fire. So you don't need to put two and two together. Okay. Also, there was a pushchair that she habitually had with her was found on top of her body, and senior investigators at the time believe the attack was sexually motivated, and a full-scale murder inquiry was launched and 2 suspects were arrested in the same year. But later, both were released without charge due to insufficient evidence. So, 20 years have gone on, and the fundamental question, we're here in 2025, they're saying the case is done. So, how was the case solved at the end of the day? So, like most cases nowadays, okay, most cases are solved by DNA. Okay, it's either going to be witnesses by people or it's DNA. You know, old-fashioned police techniques, they've gone out the window a long time ago. And that's not me having a dig at the police or anything. So, as it says here, as part of our inquiries, DNA recovered from Jennifer's body at the time, and items including discarded cigarette butts were found at the scene, were tested. Okay, and one cigarette butt was found to contain a full profile of a man, and although the DNA was not recorded on the National DNA database, for whatever reason you would have thought that they would have, you know, police officers and detectives aren't supposed to be stupid. I apologise, I am thirsty. It says component parts from the male profile match those found on Jennifer's body and in areas within the beach shelter. So, within advancements in technology back in 2018, they decided to use a bit of common sense, and this is how they found him. They decided to go down the route of familiar DNA. And I know a lot of people are going to say, what the hell is familiar DNA? You know, and familiar DNA is something that is solved a lot of cases in the UK. Okay, it's quite popular in America. I know there have been serial killers that have actually been caught due to familiar DNA. So this is the easiest way to explain it. Okay, and this is why I say it's not as popular in the UK. So say, for instance, I decide to go on Ancestry and I want to get myself tested, find out if I've got any other family around the country or anywhere else in the world that I don't know about. You know, maybe my mum or father have had multiple affairs and they haven't admitted them to me. Okay, or maybe I want to find my daughter. Okay, but my ex-girlfriend's been stopping me from seeing for 16 years. Yes, that's a dig at you, Sophie. Okay, so what I can do is go and get a DNA test done. Okay, so it goes onto their database, which the police do have access to. So, let's say for argument's sake, my oldest son, in 10 years' time, he's 10 at the moment, goes and commits a serious crime. Okay, and they decide, right, crime's been committed. Okay, There's nothing on the police database. Let's go and look on other databases we have access to. So they come across mine. Mine looks quite similar because my own child's going to have similar DNA to me. That's familiar DNA because he's my son. Okay, and that's potentially a way of catching him, which for him, I hope he stays clean because it won't be difficult for him to catch him. So that's how a lot of crimes are being committed nowadays, because people DNA's on there. But you know, I could have been arrested for drink driving. I don't drive or anything, so I wouldn't be arrested for drink driving, and no different. I could be put on the police database and he's committed a serious crime. They find him, okay, via my DNA. That's familiar DNA, okay? So it's a way of catching people where they're linked to other people, okay? Quite close. So you're looking at parents, brothers and sisters, that type of thing. We're not talking about distant at the end of the day, but still, even with distant, you know, say for instance cousins or second cousins, I would suspect they can still do it that way, but it's going to create a bigger pool of people that it potentially could be that, you know, in this case it's a murder. So this is the fundamental thing now. Who was the killer? Now the actual killer is a guy called Keith Dobeckin or Dalbeckin. Now he is deceased, so there is going to be no trial, okay, but they know who's done it at the end of the day, and that's the most important thing, because the most important thing for any family is closure and know who's responsible for it. So even though there's not going to be any trial or anything, you know, they can put it to bed to a certain degree at the end of the day, because they know who it is and they know that it's not going to hurt anybody else. And the irony with this case is he's a guy that was suspected of other rapes and I believe another murder as well in another police area. So it's over in Norfolk as it happens. So, and the irony is the rapes were before this murder. So that was in 2003. So we're not exactly talking about somebody who was a good boy or anything. You know, to be honest, and I'll be brutally honest, seeing a picture of him, looks like the guy next door. You ask me, is that a murderer? I wouldn't have thought so. But, you know, that's the thing. And that's probably why he got away with it for so many years. You know, that he does look like the guy next door, you know. You know, so what can you actually really say at the end of the day? You know, as it says here, prior to his murder, he'd been arrested by Norfolk Police in connection with two separate rape offences in Great Yarmouth in 2003 and 2004. He was released without charge in both cases, and his DNA was not taken. The question is, why wasn't his DNA taken? Because I'm pretty sure if you're arrested for rape nowadays, your DNA is going to be taken. So the argument is, this case could have been solved years ago. Absolutely years ago. If the police had taken DNA. And I know it's going to open the can of worms saying it's against civil liberties and privacy and everything. But if it gets criminals off the street and solves cases a lot quicker, would I be personally against it? And I know people are going to shout and scream at me. Probably not. You know, there is the argument that if somebody's arrested for a serious crime and they're a serious suspect in it, there is an argument for taking DNA and maybe holding it on the system. I know it boils down to Big Brother and everything. Whether I'm right or wrong, that's an argument for another day. But the good thing about this, yes, the guy is deceased. and the case is solved. So, you know, hopefully the family can get a bit of rest and peace now, you know, knowing that the guy isn't going to be able to hurt anybody else. So let us know what you personally think. You know, one question that I would ask is there an argument that DNA should start being taken off people if they've been arrested for serious crimes? Because this is a case that could have been solved a long time ago if they had taken it, when he was arrested for 2 rapes. So let us know in the comments what you think. Obviously, if you're new to the channel, please do give us a like and subscribe. But for now, thanks for listening, and we'll speak to you again a bit later.